Hey guys, tonight we're going to dim the lights, settle into that comfy spot, and journey back to a time when the world was a canvas painted with the whims of powerful, often capricious gods. Imagine the warm Mediterranean sun on your skin, the scent of olive groves carried on a gentle breeze, and the distant sound of lyres playing. Now, picture yourself, a humble citizen of ancient Greece, looking up at the towering peaks of Mount Olympus, knowing that up there, amidst the clouds, resided beings of immense power, beauty, and terrifying wrath. These weren't distant, abstract concepts. They were living, breathing, or at least immortal breathing entities who meddled in human affairs with a frequency that would make your nosy neighbor blush. You'd wake up, perhaps, and wonder if Zeus had a bad dream last night, or if Hera was in one of her moods. Because, let's be honest, your crops, your love life, and even your very existence might depend on it. It was a world where a sudden storm wasn't just weather. It was Poseidon having a particularly bad hair day. And you, my friend, would probably not survive a single day in that world without a serious understanding of who was who in the divine hierarchy. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening, let me know your location and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing on sun-drenched marble, the air thick with the scent of incense and the murmur of prayers. This isn't just a belief system, it's the very fabric of your existence. Every sunrise is Helios guiding his fiery chariot across the sky. Every harvest is Demeter's blessing, and every battle fought is under the watchful, often interfering, eyes of Ares or Athena. The ancient Greeks didn't just believe in their gods, they lived with them, in a constant, intricate dance of supplication, appeasement, and sometimes desperate plea. The pantheon, that grand assembly of deities, is a sprawling, often dysfunctional family. At the very top, of course, is Zeus, the king of the gods, wielder of the thunderbolt, and arguably the most prolific philanderer in mythological history. You learn from childhood stories how he overthrew his father, Cronus, in a cosmic struggle that reshaped the universe. You know that his temper is legendary, and a single flick of his wrist can bring forth a storm that would make modern meteorologists weep. Yet, for all his power, he's often swayed by the arguments of his divine siblings and children, making the Olympian court feel less like a rigid monarchy and more like a very high-stakes family reunion. Then there's Hera, his perpetually aggrieved wife and queen of the gods, patroness of marriage and childbirth, who spends an inordinate amount of time plotting revenge against Zeus's many lovers and their unfortunate offspring. You'd be wise to offer her extra prayers, especially if you're a woman seeking a good marriage or safe childbirth. Her wrath, unlike Zeus's fiery outbursts, is a slow, simmering burn, capable of inflicting long-term misery. Imagine trying to get anything done when the goddess of your domestic bliss is actively trying to make your life a living hell because your husband looked at another woman. It's enough to make you consider celibacy. Next, you have Poseidon, the gruff lord of the seas, earthquakes, and horses. Living near the coast, you know his power intimately. A calm sea means safe passage for traders and fishermen. A bountiful catch, a turbulent sea. However, yes, means shipwrecks, drowned sailors, and coastal devastation. You'd see fishermen offering him libations of wine before setting sail, hoping to curry favor with the moody deity. It's like trying to appease a very large, very wet, and very easily offended boss. Hades, the often misunderstood ruler of the underworld, completes the triumvirate of brothers. He's not evil, per se, but he's certainly not the life of the party. His domain is the realm of the dead, a place you hope to avoid for as long as possible. You wouldn't typically build temples to Hades in the bustling city centers. His worship tends to be more somber, more private, often involving chthonic rituals performed in secluded groves or near caves, believed to lead to his shadowy kingdom. You might offer him a black lamb, hoping to ensure a peaceful transition for a recently departed loved one. Or perhaps just to ensure he doesn't decide to pay you an unscheduled visit. Beyond these three, the Olympian family expands. There's Athena, the wise goddess of strategic warfare, wisdom, and handicrafts, born fully formed from Zeus's head. She's the patroness of your city. Athens and her temple, the Parthenon, stands as a testament to her glory. You'd see artisans and soldiers alike praying to her, seeking her guidance in their crafts and battles. She's the kind of goddess who would probably organize your entire life for you, right down to your sock drawer, if you asked her. Then there's Apollo, the radiant god of music, poetry, prophecy, and healing, with his twin sister Artemis, the fierce goddess of the hunt, wilderness, and childbirth. Apollo's oracle at Delphi is a major pilgrimage site, where you might seek answers to life's most perplexing questions, though the answers often come in cryptic riddles. Artemis, on the other hand, demands respect for nature. You wouldn't dare hunt in her sacred groves without proper reverence, lest you end up as a particularly unfortunate deer. Dionysus, the god of wine, revelry, and ecstatic madness, offers a stark contrast to the more ordered deities. His worship involves wild, uninhibited festivals, where inhibitions are shed and boundaries blurred. You might participate in his rites, feeling a primal connection to the earth and the raw forces of nature. It's less about quiet prayer and more about letting loose, dancing until dawn, and perhaps making some questionable life choices you'll regret in the morning. And of course, there's Aphrodite, the goddess of love, beauty, pleasure, and procreation, whose birth from the sea foam is a tale of exquisite beauty. You'd pray to her for success in love, for fertility, or simply to enhance your own allure. Her temples are often places of sensual delight, where the air is thick with perfume and the sounds of laughter. She's the goddess who probably invented the concept of self-care long before it became a hashtag. These gods aren't just figures in myths. They are active participants in your daily life. Every natural phenomenon, every stroke of luck, every misfortune is attributed to their influence. You don't question their existence, it's as self-evident as the sun in the sky. Their stories are told and retold, not just for entertainment, but as moral lessons, warnings, and explanations for the inexplicable. You learn that hubris, excessive pride, is the quickest way to incur divine wrath. You learn that hospitality, Xenia, is a sacred duty. As gods often travel in disguise to test mortals, it's like a cosmic reality show where you're always on camera, and the judges are incredibly powerful and easily offended. The concept of arete, often translated as excellence or virtue, is deeply intertwined with your relationship with the gods. It's not about blind faith, but about striving to be your best self, honoring the gods through your actions, and living in harmony with the natural and divine order. You understand that the gods favor those who demonstrate courage, wisdom, and piety. It's not just about what you say, but what you do. One common historical fact you absorb from a young age is that the gods were not seen as omnibenevolent or omniscient in the way a modern monotheistic deity might be. They were powerful, yes, but also flawed, jealous, and prone to human-like emotions. They argued, they cheated, they held grudges. This made them relatable, in a strange way, but also unpredictable. You couldn't always count on them to be good in the human sense. Their morality operated on a different plane. This fundamental difference shapes your approach to worship. You don't just ask for favors, you try to understand their personalities, their likes and dislikes, almost like navigating a complex social network of divine beings. A unique or lesser-known detail you might observe is the prevalence of local cults and epithets. While the major Olympians were universally recognized, each city-state and even individual villages often had a particular affinity for certain deities or specific manifestations of those deities. For instance, Athena was worshipped as Athena Polias, protector of the city, in Athens, but elsewhere she might be Athena Primakos, the frontline fighter, or Athena Ergain, patroness of crafts. You might find a small shrine to Zeus Ctesios, protector of your storeroom, right next to your pantry, a very specific and practical aspect of divine protection. This localized worship meant that while the core pantheon was shared, the nuances of devotion could vary significantly from one region to another. It's like everyone knows the main celebrities, but each town has its own local heroes and specific ways of celebrating them. The very nature of divine intervention is a topic of ongoing academic debate. For instance, historians still debate whether the ancient Greeks truly believed the gods literally descended from Olympus to walk among them, or if these were more metaphorical representations of divine influence. You, as an ancient Greek, probably wouldn't ponder such philosophical distinctions. When your ship is saved from a storm, it's Poseidon's mercy, plain and simple. When a sudden gust of wind snuffs out your enemy's torch in battle, it's Athena's subtle aid. The line between natural occurrence and divine intervention is blurred, almost non-existent. It's all part of the grand tapestry woven by the gods. Your understanding of the gods is also shaped by the poets and playwrights. Homer's epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, are not just thrilling adventure stories. They are foundational texts that illustrate the gods' characters, their rivalries, and their profound impact on human destiny. You'd hear these stories recited, perhaps by a traveling rhapsode in the agora, and they would reinforce your understanding of the divine order. Hesiod's Theogony provides a genealogical account of the gods, tracing their lineage from the primordial chaos, giving you a cosmic family tree to memorize. These narratives aren't just entertainment. They are theology, history, and moral instruction all rolled into one. It's like your entire education comes from epic poems and dramatic plays. The concept of Moira, or fate, also plays a crucial role. Even the gods are, in some sense, subject to fate. While they can influence events, there are certain destinies that even Zeus cannot alter. This introduces a layer of complexity to your worship. You pray for intervention, but you also acknowledge that some things are simply meant to be. It's a delicate balance between free will and divine decree, a philosophical tightrope that you walk every day. You might pray for a good harvest, but if the fates have decreed a famine, well, then you're just out of luck, aren't you? Your piety isn't just about avoiding punishment. It's about seeking favor, ensuring prosperity, and maintaining eusebeia, a sense of reverence and proper conduct towards the gods. This isn't a passive belief. It's an active, ongoing relationship. You participate in public rituals, you offer private prayers, and you try to live a life that would be pleasing to the divine. It's a constant negotiation, a cosmic give and take. You give them your devotion, and they, hopefully, give you a good life. The gods are not distant, abstract beings. They are present in the rustle of the leaves, the crash of the waves, the warmth of the sun, and the fury of the storm. They are in the laughter of your children and the sorrow of your losses. Your world is imbued with their presence, and every action, every decision, is made with an awareness of their watchful eyes. You learn to read the omens, to interpret the signs, to listen for their whispers in the wind. It's a world alive with divinity, a world where the sacred and the mundane are inextricably intertwined. And as the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the temple steps, you offer one last silent prayer, hoping for a peaceful night, and perhaps a favorable dream from Morpheus, the god of dreams. You wake up to the sound of birds chirping, the morning sun streaming through your small window. Today is a special day. You have a vow to fulfill, a prayer to offer, or you simply feel the need to get closer to the gods. That means you are going to the temple. For ancient Greeks like you, the temple was more than just a building. It was a meeting point, a bridge between the mortal world and the divine realm. It was not a place for weekly gatherings like a modern church, but a home for the gods, a sacred place where their presence was felt most clearly. You begin your journey, walking along cobblestone streets worn by centuries. The air is fresh, carrying the scent of pine trees and the sea. As you approach the sacred area, you feel a subtle change in the air, a sense of solemnity beginning to take over. It's not fear, but reverence, a realization that you're entering another dimension where the rules of the mortal world may not quite apply. You see others walking in the same direction, some carrying baskets of fruit, others leading small animals for sacrifice, all with the same goal to connect with the gods. The ancient Greek temples, the architectural wonders you see today, were not just beautiful structures. They were statements of power, wealth, and devotion. Think of the sturdy Doric columns, the elegant Ionic columns with their decorative scrolls, or the magnificent Corinthian columns with their intricately carved acanthus leaves. Each of these architectural styles has its own meaning, but they all work toward the same goal to create a space worthy of the presence of the gods. You know that building these temples required decades of labor, incredible craftsmanship, and enormous resources. It was a community effort, a prayer of stone and wood. As you enter the sacred area, you will pass through a temenos, a sacred boundary marked by walls or pillars. This is where the mortal world ends and the divine world begins. Inside the temenos, you will find not only the main shrine, but also possibly smaller altars, sacred groves, sacred springs, and sometimes treasuries to store precious sacrificial offerings. It is like a national park for the gods. But instead of hiking trails, you have paths to spiritual enlightenment. The altar, or bomos, is usually located at the front of the temple, outdoors. This is where the main rituals, especially sacrifices, are performed. You will see incense smoke rising from the altar, carrying your prayers and offerings up into the sky, straight to the gods. The altar is the heart of public worship, where the community gathers to perform communal rituals. This is where you will see the blood of sacrificial animals flowing, a sight that to you is completely normal and necessary to maintain balance with the divine world. Don't worry, it's not a horrifying sight, unless you're a goat. A common historical fact that you know is that most Greek temples were built in an east-west orientation, with the main entrance facing east. This allowed the rising sun to shine directly on the cult statue inside, bathing it in sacred light in the morning. It's a subtle yet meaningful architectural detail that shows the Greeks' deep connection to the natural cycle in the universe. You can imagine the scene when the first rays of dawn hit the face of Athena or Apollo, making the statue seem alive. One unique or little-known detail you may notice is that not all of the temples were dedicated to Olympian gods. Some were dedicated to local heroes, nature spirits, or even abstract concepts like justice or peace. For example, you might find a small temple to Nemesis, the goddess of vengeance, or a temple to Tyche, the goddess of luck, in an obscure corner of the city. These temples were often smaller, more modest, but no less important to those seeking the intervention of these particular entities. It's like having a temple for Happy Mondays, just in case. Historians still debate whether the temples were used as safe havens for those fleeing justice. In some cases, seeking refuge in a temple may provide temporary protection, as it is considered extremely disrespectful to the gods to desecrate a sacred space with violence. However, the extent of this protection varies by city and period, and it is not always guaranteed. You may see a fugitive clinging to a temple pillar, hoping that the divine presence will protect them from human retribution. In addition to the large temples, you will also find countless smaller altars, shrines, and sacred groves scattered throughout the countryside and in the cities. An ancient oak tree may be sacred to Zeus, a cave may be a place of worship for nymphs, or an odd rock may be the abode of a local deity. These places are often where you perform private prayers, offering small offerings such as a handful of wheat or a flower. It was a way to maintain a continuing relationship with the spirit world, even if you couldn't make it to a large temple. The offerings and objects placed in temples were also varied. You might see small terracotta figurines, stone tablets engraved with prayers, ornate ceramic vessels, or even gold or silver body parts offered as thanks for healing. These items were more than just gifts, they were promises, thanks, and tangible expressions of devotion. They piled up in temple vaults, forming a vast collection of religious history and art. You could imagine yourself walking through a museum where every item was an answered prayer. Priests and priestesses played an important role in maintaining temples and performing rituals. They were not preachers or spiritual guides in the modern sense. Instead, their main role is to manage rituals, making sure that everything is done properly to please the gods. They are the caretakers of temples, who make sure that the fires on the altars never go out and that the statues are kept clean. They can be ordinary people in your community, chosen for their lineage, wealth, or simply because they have a special connection to the deity. You will also notice that temples are often centers of public life, not just places of worship. They are the sites of festivals, sports competitions, and sometimes political meetings. The square in front of the temple can become a bustling market during festivals, where people gather to trade goods, hear news, and participate in religious and social activities. It is like a multi-purpose community center, where you can both pray and shop. The sacredness of a place is often determined by a mythological event or a divine sign. For example, the site where Zeus struck a lightning bolt may become a sacred area, or a cave where a god is said to have appeared. These stories are passed down from generation to generation, reinforcing the belief in the sacredness of the place. You grow up with these stories, and they shape the way you see the world around you. Maintaining temples was a constant effort. Large structures required regular repairs, and offerings needed to be replenished. This was often funded by donations from wealthy individuals, cities, or even city-states. Donating to a temple was not only a religious act, but also a way to demonstrate your social status and patriotism. You might see a wealthy citizen sponsoring the construction of a new gate to a temple, or a group of merchants contributing to the purchase of a large sacrificial animal. Finally, sacred space was not limited to temples and altars. It also included sacred groves, alsos, sacred caves, and even mountaintops. These places were often considered to be the dwelling places of gods or nature spirits, and you would approach them with the same reverence you would if you were visiting a temple. You can walk through a sacred forest and feel the silence and presence of the gods and the rustling of the leaves. It is a reminder that the spirit world is not just far away on Mount Olympus, but is all around you, in every corner of the natural world. And when you leave the sacred area, you carry with you a sense of peace and a renewed connection to the gods, ready to face the challenges of mortal life. Having just left the sacred Temeno, that feeling of divine proximity still lingers, a gentle hum in the air around you. But the connection isn't a one-way street. The gods, as you well know, expect something in return for their blessings, their protection, and their occasional or frequent meddling in your affairs. This is where offerings and sacrifices come in, the very heart of ancient Greek worship. A complex tapestry of gratitude, supplication, and sometimes a desperate plea for mercy. You understand that every interaction with the divine is a transaction, a reciprocal relationship. You give, and you hope the gods give back. It's not about bribery, not exactly, but about maintaining charis, a bond of mutual goodwill and favor. You wouldn't just walk up to Zeus and demand a good harvest without offering him something in return, would you? That would be like showing up to a dinner party empty-handed and then complaining about the food. The simplest offerings are often the most common, woven into the fabric of your daily life. Before you even think about grand ceremonies, consider the small personal gestures. You might pour a libation, a small offering of liquid, onto the ground before a meal. Dedicating the first sip of wine to Dionysus, or a splash of water to the nymphs of a nearby spring. It's a quick, almost unconscious act, a constant acknowledgement of the divine presence in your everyday existence. You might offer a handful of grain to Demeter before sowing your fields, or a few drops of olive oil to Athena before starting a new weaving project. These aren't grand spectacles, they're quiet whispers of devotion, tiny threads in the vast web of piety. Incense, too, is a common offering. You light a small cone of aromatic resin, watching the thin tendril of smoke curl upwards, carrying your silent prayers directly to the heavens. The scent, often sweet and earthy, fills your nostrils, creating an immediate sensory link to the sacred. It's a purification, a pleasant aroma for the gods, and a way to elevate your thoughts from the mundane to the divine. Imagine the smell of frankincense and myrrh mingling with the salty sea air. It's a truly intoxicating experience, unless you're allergic, in which case it's just an intoxicating experience with a side of sneezing. Votive offerings are another crucial element. These are gifts dedicated to a god in fulfillment of a vow, as thanks for a favor granted, or in anticipation of one. You might dedicate a small clay figurine of a worshiper, a miniature animal, or even a replica of a body part that was healed. If you recovered from a debilitating illness, you might commission a small silver leg or arm and dedicate it to Asclepius, the god of healing, hanging it in his temple as a permanent testament to his benevolence. These votives accumulate in the temple treasuries, forming a silent chorus of prayers answered and hopes fulfilled. It's like a divine lost and found. But everything is a thank you note. But then, there are the sacrifices. The grand, public rituals that truly define the relationship between mortals and gods. These are not quiet whispers. They are loud declarations, communal acts that bind the city-state together in shared reverence. And at the heart of most public sacrifices lies the animal. The selection of the animal is the first crucial step. It must be unblemished, healthy, and often of a specific color or type suitable for the deity being honored. A white bull for Zeus, a black lamb for the chthonic gods of the underworld, a sow for Demeter. You wouldn't offer a scrawny, limping goat to Apollo and expect a favorable prophecy? Would you? That's just asking for divine side-eye. The animal is adorned with garlands and ribbons, transforming it from mere livestock into a sacred vessel. The procession to the altar is a spectacle in itself. You join the throng, perhaps carrying a basket of offerings or a branch of laurel. Musicians play flutes and lyres, their melodies weaving through the air. Priests and priestesses, clad in ceremonial robes, led the way, their voices chanting solemn invocations. The chosen animal, often a magnificent bull or a sturdy ram, walks calmly, seemingly aware of its destiny, or perhaps just enjoying the parade. This public display reinforces the community's shared piety and strengthens social bonds. It's like a very serious, very ancient parade, where the guest of honor is also the main course. Upon reaching the bomos, the outdoor altar in front of the temple, the purification rituals begin. Water is sprinkled on the participants, cleansing them of any impurities before they approach the sacred space. A crucial and perhaps surprising detail is the ritualistic consent of the animal. Water is sprinkled on the animal's head, and if it shakes its head, it is interpreted as a nod of agreement, a willing participation in the sacrifice. If it doesn't, well, they keep sprinkling until it does. You can imagine the priest patiently splashing water, perhaps muttering, "Come on, just one little nod for Zeus. Buddy, you can do it." This small act transforms the killing from a simple slaughter into a ritually sanctioned act, a shared endeavor between man and beast for the gods. The formal prayers and invocations follow, led by the priest. He addresses the specific deity, outlining the purpose of the sacrifice, whether it's a thank offering, a request for a blessing, or an act of atonement. The air is thick with anticipation, the collective breath of the community held in reverence. Then comes the moment of the kill. This is often the part that modern sensibilities find most unsettling, but for you it's a necessary and sacred act. The animal's throat is cut over the altar, and its blood, the very essence of its life, is collected or allowed to flow onto the altar, nourishing the earth and the gods. The act is swift and precise, performed by trained attendants. It's not a display of cruelty, but a ritualistic release of life force, directed towards the divine. After the animal is butchered, the division of the meat begins, a process governed by strict religious protocols. The gods receive their share, first the bones, wrapped in fat, and often the tail, are placed on the altar and burned. As the smoke rises, carrying the fragrant aroma of burning fat, it is believed to ascend to Olympus, a divine meal for the gods. This is their portion, the thyan, the part that truly belongs to them. Imagine Zeus up there, sniffing the air. Ah, finally, some good barbecue. Some good. The remaining meat is then divided. A portion goes to the priests and priestesses, their sustenance for their sacred duties. The largest portion, however, is distributed among the worshippers, who then partake in a communal feast. This is a critical aspect of the sacrifice. It's not just an offering to the gods, but a shared meal with the gods. By consuming the meat, you are participating in a sacred communion, strengthening your bond with the divine and with your fellow citizens. The feast is a joyous occasion, a celebration of piety and community. You laugh, you eat, you drink, all under the benevolent, hopefully gaze of the gods. One common historical fact you learn is the concept of the hecatomb. This was a grand sacrifice involving the slaughter of 100 oxen, usually performed on major state occasions or in times of great crisis or celebration. Imagine the sheer scale of such an event: 100 magnificent bulls, their roars echoing across the plains, the collective effort of hundreds of people, and the monumental feast that would follow. It was a display of immense wealth, power, and devotion, a clear signal to the gods and rival city-states that this community was serious about its piety. Historians still debate whether the number 100 was always literal or sometimes symbolic. But you know it meant a lot of beef. A unique or lesser-known detail, as mentioned, is the ritual of sprinkling water on the animal's head to elicit a nod of consent. While it might seem like a quaint or even humorous detail to a modern observer, for the ancient Greeks, it was a vital part of the ritual. transforming the animal from a mere victim into a willing participant, thereby making the sacrifice more acceptable to the gods. It added a layer of spiritual legitimacy to an act that could otherwise be seen as brutal. It's like getting a signed waiver from your dinner. Academic scholars still debate the primary purpose of animal sacrifice. Was it primarily an act of feeding the gods, ensuring their continued favor, or was it more about solidifying social bonds within the community, using the shared feast as a unifying ritual? You, as a participant, probably wouldn't separate these concepts. For you, it's both you feed the gods, and in doing so, you feed yourselves, physically and spiritually, strengthening the ties that bind your society together. The ritual is multifaceted, serving both divine and human needs. Beyond the common animal sacrifices, there were specific types of offerings for different divine entities. For the chthonic gods, those associated with the earth and the underworld, the rituals differed significantly. Instead of burning the fatty portions to the sky, the entire animal might be burned as a holocaust from holocaustos, meaning burnt whole, with the smoke descending into the earth. The blood might be poured into a pit in the ground, a direct offering to the deities below. These sacrifices were often performed at night, in secluded locations, and were generally more somber, lacking the joyous communal feast of Olympian sacrifices. You wouldn't be cracking jokes during a chthonic ritual, that's just bad form. The choice of offering also depended on the nature of the request. If you were seeking healing, you might offer a rooster to Asclepius. If you were praying for fertility, a piglet to Demeter might be more appropriate. The specific animal, its age, gender, and color, all carried symbolic meaning and were carefully chosen to match the deity and the purpose of the sacrifice. It's like ordering from a very specific divine menu. Sometimes, the horrifying aspect of ancient Greek rituals isn't about blood and guts, but about the sheer intensity and scale of devotion. Consider the devotio in Roman contexts, where a general might vow himself and the enemy army to the gods of the underworld in exchange for victory, a form of self-sacrifice, though more common in Rome than Greece. While direct human sacrifice was extremely rare and largely condemned in classical Greece, the idea of extreme dedication, of giving up everything for the gods, could be unsettling. The closest you might come to something truly horrifying in a Greek context would be the occasional, desperate, and often mythical tales of human sacrifice in times of extreme famine or plague, usually depicted as a last resort and often ending tragically. But for the most part, your world revolves around animal sacrifice, which, while bloody, is a well-understood and accepted part of life. It's not a horror movie, it's just a Tuesday. The concept of miasma, or ritual pollution, is also crucial here. Any impurity, whether physical or moral, could render a sacrifice unacceptable to the gods and even incur their wrath. Before participating in a major ritual, you would undergo purification rites, washing yourself, perhaps even abstaining from certain foods or activities. The priest would also ensure that the altar and the implements were ritually clean. It's like making sure your hands are clean before you prepare a meal for a very important guest. The economic implications of sacrifice were also significant. Large-scale sacrifices required considerable resources, and the distribution of meat played a vital role in the diet of many citizens, especially the poorer ones. The temples, through their vast treasuries and the offerings they received, also became centers of wealth and economic activity. It was a system that intertwined religion, economy, and social welfare. As the smoke from the altar dissipates into the clear blue sky, carrying the essence of your offering upwards, you feel a sense of completion. The ritual has been performed correctly. The gods have been honored, and the community has been strengthened. The air is now filled with the aroma of roasting meat, and the sounds of joyous chatter and laughter replace the solemn chants. You join your fellow citizens, sharing in the feast, discussing the day's events, and feeling a profound connection to something larger than yourself. The gods have been fed, and so have you. It's a good day. The lingering scent of roasted meat from yesterday's sacrifice still hangs faintly in the air, a comforting reminder of divine favor. But while sacrifices offer a way to appease and commune with the gods, sometimes you need more direct guidance. You need answers, specific insights into the future, or clarity on a perplexing decision. This is where the oracles come in. those mysterious conduits through which the gods themselves are believed to speak, offering glimpses into the tapestry of fate. Imagine a world without Google, without weather forecasts, without political polls. How do you make major life decisions? How do you know if your crops will flourish, if your journey will be safe, or if your city will win the upcoming war? You turn to the divine, and the most direct line to that divine wisdom is often through an oracle. These aren't just wise old men or women. They are individuals, or sometimes institutions, believed to be directly inspired by a god, their words carrying the weight of divine decree. The most famous, of course, is the Oracle of Apollo at Delphi. You've heard tales of it since childhood, a place of immense power and mystery, nestled high on the slopes of Mount Parnassus. The journey itself is a pilgrimage, a test of your devotion. You travel for days, perhaps weeks, across rugged terrain, past ancient olive groves and over winding mountain paths. The air grows thinner, cooler, and a sense of awe begins to settle over you as you approach the sacred site. It's like going to a really exclusive, really remote, and slightly gassy psychic convention. As you finally arrive at Delphi, you're struck by the sheer scale of the sanctuary. It's not just a single temple, but a sprawling complex of treasuries, monuments, and altars erected by various city-states to commemorate victories and honor Apollo. The sacred way, a winding path lined with these offerings, leads you upwards towards the temple of Apollo itself. You see inscriptions on the walls, ancient maxims like "Know thyself" and "Nothing in excess," reminders of the wisdom that permeates this hallowed ground. The heart of the Delphic oracle is the Pythia, Apollo's priestess. She is a woman, often older, chosen from the local community, who undergoes rigorous purification rituals before each consultation. You can imagine her, sitting on a tripod over a chasm in the earth, inhaling vapors that are said to emanate from the ground, perhaps volcanic gases, perhaps something more mystical. These vapors, combined with chewing laurel leaves and drinking from a sacred spring, induce a trance-like state. Her utterances, often disjointed and enigmatic, are then interpreted by the male priests of the temple. The process of consulting the Pythia is not simple. You first undergo purification, perhaps bathing in the Castalian spring. Then you must offer a sacrifice, typically a goat or a sheep, whose entrails are examined for favorable omens. If the omens are good, you are allowed to approach. You present your question to the priests, who then convey it to the Pythia. Her response, delivered in a guttural, otherworldly voice, is then translated and often put into verse by the priests. It's like trying to get a straight answer from a politician. But with more smoke and goats, the answers from Delphi are rarely straightforward. They are typically ambiguous, open to multiple interpretations, forcing you to ponder their meaning deeply. Think of the famous oracle given to King Croesus of Lydia, who asked if he should attack the Persian Empire. The Pythia replied, "If Croesus attacks Persia, he will destroy a great empire." Croesus, naturally, assumed it meant the Persian Empire. He attacked, and indeed, a great empire was destroyed, his own. This ambiguity is a common thread in oracular pronouncements, a way for the gods to offer guidance without dictating destiny, leaving room for human choice and responsibility. It also means the oracle is rarely wrong, just misunderstood. A common historical fact you'd know is that the Delphic oracle was consulted by individuals and city-states from all over the Greek world, and even by foreign powers like the Lydians. Its influence was immense, shaping political decisions, military campaigns, and even the founding of new colonies. No major undertaking would be considered without first seeking the Pythia's counsel. It was the ancient world's most trusted and most confusing advisory service. A unique or lesser-known detail about the Pythia is that her role was not hereditary, nor was it necessarily a lifetime appointment. While some Pythia served for many years, others might have shorter tenures. The selection process emphasized piety and moral character rather than noble birth, ensuring that the priestess was a pure vessel for Apollo's words. This democratic aspect, where a humble woman could become the voice of a god, is quite striking. It's like your local librarian suddenly becoming the most powerful person in the country. Academic scholars still debate the exact nature of the vapors inhaled by the Pythia. While ancient sources describe them as sweet-smelling, modern geological studies have suggested that ethylene or other intoxicating gases could have risen from fissures in the earth at Delphi, inducing the trance-like state However, the precise chemical composition and its effects remain a subject of ongoing discussion, with some arguing for a more purely psychological or spiritual explanation. You, however, would just accept it as divine inspiration. Beyond Delphi, other oracles existed, though none matched its prestige. The oracle of Zeus at Dodona, for instance, in northwestern Greece, was much older than Delphi. Here, the priests, known as Seloi, interpreted the rustling of the leaves of a sacred oak tree, the cooing of doves, or the clanging of bronze cauldrons. It was a more natural, elemental form of divination, connected to the ancient earth. You might visit Dodona seeking advice on agricultural matters or weather patterns, a more rustic, less theatrical experience than Delphi. It's like getting your fortune told by a very chatty tree. Another significant oracle was the Oracle of Trophonius at Lebedea. This was a chthonic oracle associated with the underworld, and its consultation was a far more terrifying experience. You would descend into an underground chamber, a dark, claustrophobic space, where you would receive your prophecy directly. The experience was so unsettling that those who emerged were said to have lost their ability to laugh, hence the phrase Trophonian laughter for a grim or forced smile. You'd only go there if you were truly desperate, or perhaps if you enjoyed extreme spiritual roller coasters. Besides these major oracles, there were also various forms of divination practiced by individuals or small groups. Augury, the interpretation of the flight patterns of birds, was common. Haruspicy, the examination of animal entrails, especially livers, was another method. Though more associated with the Etruscans and Romans, it had its roots in Greek practices. You might consult a local seer, a mantis, who could interpret dreams, omens, or even the patterns in a flickering flame. These were more accessible forms of divination, providing everyday guidance without the need for a grand pilgrimage. It's like having a neighborhood psychic, but instead of tarot cards, they're reading chicken guts. Dreams, too, were considered a significant avenue for divine communication. You might pray to Morpheus, the god of dreams, or to Asclepius, for a revelatory dream that would offer insight into your illness or a path to recovery. Dream interpretation was a recognized skill, and you might seek out someone known for their ability to decipher the often cryptic messages sent by the gods in your sleep. It's like your subconscious is sending you encrypted messages, and you need a decoder ring. The role of prophecy was not just about predicting the future, it was also about understanding the will of the gods and ensuring that human actions were aligned with divine intentions. A prophecy could confirm a course of action, warn against impending disaster, or even reveal a hidden truth. It provided a sense of order and meaning in a world that often felt chaotic and unpredictable. You weren't just blindly stumbling through life, you had a divine roadmap, albeit one written in riddles. The concept of fate and free will is constantly at play in the realm of oracles. While the gods might reveal a destined outcome, your actions could still influence the path to that outcome, or even the interpretation of the prophecy itself. It's a delicate balance, a dance between what is predetermined and what is within your control. You might be told you are destined for greatness, but it's still up to you to pick up your sword and fight. The horrifying aspect of oracles often lies not in the rituals themselves, but in the terrifying truths they might reveal. Imagine being told that your city is doomed, or that you are fated to commit a terrible crime, or that your child will die young. The burden of such knowledge, the helplessness in the face of an unchangeable future, could be far more horrifying than any bloody sacrifice. The story of Oedipus, fated to kill his father and marry his mother, is a classic example of how a prophecy, even if initially misunderstood or resisted, can lead to unspeakable tragedy. It's not the oracle's fault, it's just the messenger. The integrity of oracles was also a subject of concern. While many believed implicitly in their divine inspiration, there were always skeptics and those who suspected corruption or manipulation. Powerful individuals or city-states might attempt to bribe priests or influence the interpretations of prophecies to serve their own political agendas. This led to occasional scandals and accusations of fraud, reminding you that even in the sacred realm, human fallibility could sometimes creep in. It's like when you realize your favorite influencer is actually just selling you snake oil. Despite these occasional doubts, the belief in oracles remained strong for centuries. They provided a vital source of comfort, guidance, and a sense of connection to the divine. In a world where so much was beyond human control, the ability to consult with the gods offered a powerful sense of agency and purpose. You might not always like the answer, but at least you had an answer. As you leave Delphi, the words of the Pythia echoing in your mind, you carry not just a prophecy, but a profound sense of having stood at the threshold of the divine. The journey has been long, the rituals intense, and the answer perhaps cryptic. But you feel a renewed connection to Apollo and a deeper understanding of the intricate relationship between mortals and gods. The sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ancient stones, and you begin your journey home, pondering the mysterious words that will now shape your future. The echoes of the Pythia's cryptic words still resonate in your mind? A quiet hum of divine mystery? But life in ancient Greece isn't just about solemn pilgrimages and personal consultations with oracles. It's also about grand, vibrant celebrations. Moments when the entire community comes together in a magnificent display of piety and joy. These are the festivals. The public spectacles where the line between sacred and secular blurs, and the worship of the gods becomes a collective, exhilarating experience. Imagine the bustling streets of your city, usually filled with the mundane sounds of commerce and daily life, now transformed. Banners flutter from every building. Garlands of flowers adorn doorways, and the air is thick with the scent of roasting meat, fresh bread, and the sweet perfume of myrtle. Children run through the crowds, their laughter mingling with the excited chatter of adults. This isn't just a day off, it's a profound religious observance. A time when the city dedicates itself wholeheartedly to its patron deity or a specific Olympian. You wake up on the morning of a major festival, say, the Panathenaea in Athens, dedicated to Athena. The city is already alive with anticipation. This isn't just a local affair. People have traveled from the surrounding countryside, even from other city-states, to participate or witness the grandeur. You put on your finest clothes, perhaps a freshly laundered chiton, and join your family as you make your way towards the agora, the heart of public life, the procession. The Pompeii is the centerpiece of many festivals. For the Panathenaea, it's a magnificent display, winding its way from the city gates, through the agora, and up to the Acropolis. You might find yourself walking alongside fellow citizens, perhaps carrying a small offering, or simply observing the spectacle. You see young women, the Kanephoroi, carrying baskets filled with offerings, their movements graceful and solemn. You see chariots, cavalry, and even old men carrying olive branches, all moving in a slow, reverent rhythm. It's like the biggest, most elaborate parade you could ever imagine. But instead of floats, you have sacred offerings. And instead of pop stars, you have the city's most respected citizens. At the head of the procession for the Panathenaea is the Peplos, a new, elaborately woven robe for the ancient wooden cult statue of Athena Polias. This isn't just any piece of clothing, it's a sacred garment, woven by specially chosen women over many months, depicting scenes from Athena's life and the Gigantomachy, the cosmic battle between the gods and giants. The sight of this peplos, carried aloft like a sail, fills you with a sense of pride and devotion to your city's patron goddess. It's a tangible expression of the city's gratitude and loyalty. Upon reaching the Acropolis, the procession culminates at the altar in front of the Parthenon, where a grand sacrifice takes place. Imagine the scene. Hundreds of animals, often cattle, are led to the altar. The air fills with the lowing of the beasts, the solemn chants of the priests, and the collective murmur of the crowd. The sacrifice is performed with precision and reverence, the smoke from the burning bones and fat rising to the heavens, a fragrant offering to Athena. You participate in the communal feast that follows, sharing in the consecrated meat, a tangible connection to the divine and your fellow citizens. This shared meal reinforces the bonds of community, transforming individuals into a unified body of worshippers. It's a potluck with divine approval, and the main dish is beef. Beyond the religious rituals, festivals are also a time for celebration, competition, and entertainment. The Panathenaea, for instance, includes athletic contests, musical performances, and poetic recitations. You might watch young men compete in wrestling, discus throwing, or foot races, their bodies gleaming with oil, striving for glory and the olive wreath of victory. These contests are not merely secular sports, they are also a form of worship, a demonstration of human excellence, or arete, offered to the gods. It's like the Olympics, but with more poetry and less corporate sponsorship. A common historical fact you'd know about these festivals is that they were often tied to the agricultural calendar. The Dionysia, a festival honoring Dionysus, the god of wine and revelry, takes place in the spring, coinciding with the budding of the vines. The Eleusinian mysteries, while secret, were also linked to the harvest cycle, celebrating Demeter and Persephone and the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. This connection to nature's rhythms reinforces the idea that the gods are intimately involved in the fertility of the land and the well-being of the community. You celebrate the bounty of the earth by thanking the divine forces that provide it. A unique or lesser-known detail about public festivals is the role of the shoragos. This was a wealthy citizen who would volunteer to fund and organize the chorus for dramatic performances at festivals like the city Dionysia. It was a form of public service, a way for the wealthy to contribute to the religious and cultural life of the city, and to gain prestige. Imagine a modern billionaire funding a Broadway show just for the sheer civic pride of it, with no expectation of profit. It's a fascinating glimpse into the civic responsibility and competitive generosity of ancient Greek society. Academic scholars still debate the extent to which these festivals were primarily religious versus civic events. While the rituals and sacrifices were undeniably religious, the athletic contests, dramatic performances, and communal feasts also served to strengthen civic identity, foster social cohesion, and display the wealth and power of the city-state. You, as a participant, would likely see no distinction. For you, the religious and civic aspects are inextricably intertwined. Two sides of the same coin. The city Dionysia, a major festival in Athens honoring Dionysus, is another example of public worship at its most vibrant. This festival is famous for its dramatic performances, where the greatest tragedies and comedies of ancient Greece are first staged. You would sit in the Theater of Dionysus, a massive open-air amphitheater carved into the side of the Acropolis, watching plays that explore themes of fate, justice, and the human condition. The experience is immersive, emotional, and deeply spiritual. The plays themselves are a form of worship, exploring the complex relationship between mortals and gods, and often serving as a cathartic release for the audience. It's like going to the theater, but the actors are wearing masks and the plots are usually about someone accidentally marrying their mother. During the Dionysia, the statue of Dionysus Eleutherius is carried from his temple outside the city walls into the theater, where it remains throughout the festival, presiding over the performances. This symbolic act emphasizes the god's presence and patronage of the dramatic arts. You feel his spirit in the wild abandon of the satyr plays and the profound sorrow of the tragedies. Other festivals are more localized but no less important. The Thesmophoria, for instance, is a women-only festival honoring Demeter and Persephone, focusing on fertility and agricultural abundance. You, if you are a woman, would participate in secret rites, involving the burial and retrieval of sacrificial pigs, a ritual meant to ensure the fertility of the fields. It's a powerful expression of female solidarity and a direct appeal to the earth goddesses. The Olympic Games, while famous for their athletic prowess, were fundamentally religious festivals dedicated to Zeus, held every 4 years at Olympia. They brought together Greeks from all over the Hellenic world, united by a common language, culture, and reverence for the gods. The truce, or ekakyria, declared before and during the games, allowed participants and spectators to travel safely, highlighting the sacred nature of the event. You would witness the lighting of the sacred flame, the solemn oaths taken by the athletes, and the grand sacrifices offered to Zeus. Winning an Olympic victory was not just an athletic achievement, it was a divine blessing, a testament to the favor of the gods. The horrifying aspect of these public festivals, as if you can call it that, often lies in their sheer intensity and the potential for ecstatic madness, particularly in the rites of Dionysus. While largely controlled and ritualized, the Bacchanalian revels could involve frenzied dancing, consuming raw meat, and a temporary shedding of societal norms. For an outsider, or someone unaccustomed to such uninhibited displays, it could be unsettling, even terrifying. Imagine your quiet neighbor suddenly tearing apart a goat with their bare hands in a fit of divine ecstasy. It's not for the faint of heart, but for the initiated. It's a powerful, liberating experience. The communal aspect of these festivals cannot be overstated. They were moments of shared identity, where social distinctions might temporarily fade, and everyone, from the wealthiest citizen to the humblest slave, could participate in the worship of the gods. The shared experience of the procession, the sacrifice, the feast, and the performances created a powerful sense of belonging and solidarity. It was a time to forget your individual worries and become part of something much larger. The funding of these festivals was a significant undertaking, often relying on the generosity of wealthy citizens through a system called liturgies. A wealthy individual might be assigned the duty of funding a chorus, equipping a warship, or organizing a public feast. This was a civic obligation, but also an opportunity for public display and gaining honor. It's like a really elaborate form of philanthropy, where your name gets carved on a temple wall instead of just appearing on a plaque. As the sun sets on the final day of a great festival, the city slowly returns to its normal rhythm. The banners are taken down, the crowds disperse, and the sounds of daily life resume. But something has changed. You carry with you the memory of shared devotion, the taste of sacred meat, and the echoes of divine laughter. You feel a renewed connection to your community and to the gods, a sense of belonging that will sustain you until the next great celebration. The gods have been honored, the city has been strengthened, and you, my friend, are ready for a good night's sleep. The vibrant energy of the public festival slowly fades, leaving a pleasant afterglow of communal joy and divine connection. But beneath the grand processions and shared feasts, there's another layer to ancient Greek worship, a more intimate, often secretive dimension. These are the mystery religions, cults whose rituals are shrouded in secrecy, promising not just communal prosperity, but personal salvation, a deeper understanding of the universe, and a more profound connection to the divine. Imagine a yearning within you, a desire for something more than just appeasing the gods for a good harvest or a safe journey. You seek answers to the big questions: what happens after death? Is there a way to transcend the mundane and achieve a blessed afterlife? The public cults offer communal well-being, but the mysteries promise individual enlightenment. It's like the difference between attending a public concert and being invited to a private, exclusive jam session with your favorite band. Academic scholars still debate the exact role of the snakes in the healing process. Were they purely symbolic, representing renewal and healing? Or did their presence, perhaps combined with the psychological effects of the incubatio and the serene environment, contribute to a form of primitive psychotherapy? The interaction between the sacred and the practical in these sanctuaries remains a fascinating area of study. Other significant chthonic deities include Hecate, the goddess of magic, witchcraft, crossroads, ghosts, and necromancy. She is a terrifying yet powerful figure, often depicted with 3 faces or bodies, guarding the boundaries between worlds. You might leave offerings for Hecate at crossroads at night, particularly during the new moon, seeking her protection from malevolent spirits or her aid in magical endeavors. These offerings, often food like garlic or eggs, are left for her and the spirits that accompany her. It's like leaving a snack for a very powerful, very spooky security guard. The horrifying aspect of seeking healing in ancient Greece might not be the rituals themselves, but the desperation that drove people to them. Imagine suffering from a chronic, debilitating illness with no modern medicine, no pain relief, and no clear understanding of its cause, the fear of death, the constant pain, the burden on your family. These were the true horrors. The rituals, even if strange, offered a glimmer of hope, a last resort when all else failed. The alternative was often a slow, agonizing decline. To become an initiate, you first undergo a series of preliminary rituals. You might participate in the lesser mysteries in Athens, a purification ritual that prepares you for the greater initiation. This involves bathing in the sea, sacrificing a piglet, and undergoing a period of fasting and contemplation. It's a cleansing, a shedding of the profane, preparing your body and soul for the sacred experience to come. Think of it as a spiritual detox before the main event. Beyond incubatio, other healing practices were employed. Patients might leave votive offerings, often detailed anatomical models of the body part that was healed, as a public display of gratitude. These offerings, made of clay, marble, or even precious metals, filled the temple treasuries, serving as a testament to Asclepius's efficacy. You'd see rows upon rows of ears, eyes, limbs, and even internal organs, each a silent story of recovery. It's like a very specific art gallery dedicated to human anatomy. Then there are the Erinyes, or Furies, fearsome goddesses of vengeance who pursue those who have committed heinous crimes, especially matricide or patricide. You certainly wouldn't worship them in the traditional sense, but you'd acknowledge their power and pray to avoid their wrath. They represent the inexorable force of justice, ensuring that no grave transgression goes unpunished. Imagine trying to sleep with them whispering in your ear about all the bad things you've ever done. The priests of Asclepius also played a crucial role. They were not just interpreters of dreams, but also caregivers, offering practical advice, administering herbal remedies, and performing minor surgical procedures. They maintained detailed records of successful cures, which were inscribed on stone stelae within the sanctuary, serving as both testimonials and medical case studies. These inscriptions provided hope to new patients and contributed to the growing body of medical knowledge. Albeit one filtered through a divine lens, the role of secrecy in these cults is paramount. The initiates were bound by an oath, a sacred promise never to reveal the rites to the uninitiated. This secrecy created a powerful sense of community among those who shared the experience, a bond forged in shared knowledge and a common spiritual journey. It also protected the sacredness of the rituals from profanation and ensured that the revelations were only accessible to those who had truly committed to the path. It's like a very exclusive club, and the first rule of the club is you don't talk about the club. The Asclepiae were not just places for physical healing, they also offered psychological and spiritual solace. The serene environment, the shared hope among patients, and the belief in divine intervention could have a powerful placebo effect, contributing significantly to recovery. For many, simply the act of making the pilgrimage and placing their faith in the god was a healing experience in itself. It's a reminder that sometimes the best medicine is hope. Rituals for the chthonic gods differ significantly from those for the Olympians. Instead of altars raised high to the sky, you often find pits or trenches dug into the earth, known as bothroi. Blood from sacrifices, or libations of wine, honey, or milk, are poured into these pits, allowing them to seep directly into the ground, reaching the deities below. The offerings are often dark in color, black animals, dark wine, to reflect the somber nature of the underworld. The cult of Asclepius grew immensely popular throughout the Greek and Roman worlds, spreading from its origins in Thessaly and Epidaurus to major cities like Athens and Pergamon. Its widespread adoption highlights the universal human need for healing and the enduring belief in divine power over illness. You might find an Asclepieion in almost any major city you visit, a testament to the god's widespread influence. A unique or lesser-known detail about the Eleusinian mysteries is the emphasis on the cetos, a sacred ear of grain. While the exact meaning is debated, it is believed that at the climax of the initiation, an ear of grain was displayed to the initiates in profound silence. This simple act, symbolizing Demeter's gift of agriculture and the cyclical nature of life, death, and renewal, was considered the ultimate revelation, a profound insight into the mysteries of existence. Imagine all that buildup, all that secrecy, and the big reveal is a piece of wheat. But for the initiates, it was everything. The relationship between divine healing and emerging rational medicine was complex. While figures like Hippocrates advocated for a more empirical approach to disease, observing symptoms and seeking natural causes, many still turned to the Asclepiae for cures. It wasn't necessarily an either-or situation. A patient might consult a physician for practical treatment while simultaneously seeking divine intervention at a sanctuary. It's like getting a second opinion, but one of them involves a god. Sacrifices to these gods are often holocausts, where the entire animal is burned, rather than just the fatty portions. The smoke is meant to descend, not ascend, carrying the offering down to the depths. These rituals are typically performed at night, under the cover of darkness, adding to their solemn and often eerie atmosphere. There's no communal feast afterwards. The offering is entirely for the gods of the underworld, A complete dedication? It's a very different kind of barbecue with no leftovers. As the sun begins to set, casting a golden glow over the tranquil sanctuary, you feel a sense of lightness, perhaps a slight improvement in your condition, or at least a renewed sense of hope. The air is still, save for the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant cooing of doves. You have sought the god's favor, performed the rituals, and laid your trust in his benevolent power, whether through a miraculous touch in a dream or the subtle guidance of his priests. You leave the Asclepieion with a sense of peace, ready to face the world, and perhaps a little healthier than when you arrived. The appeal of the mystery religions lay in their promise of personal salvation and a more optimistic view of the afterlife compared to the traditional Olympian religion. While the Olympians were concerned with the affairs of the living, the mystery cults offered a path to a blessed existence beyond death, a hope for immortality or a favorable reincarnation. This was a powerful draw for individuals seeking solace and meaning in a world where death was a constant presence. The gentle hum of the healing sanctuaries fades into the quiet of the night, leaving you with a sense of restored hope. But the divine influence in your world isn't limited to the great Olympians or the chthonic gods of the underworld, nor is it confined to the living. Tonight, we turn our attention to those who once walked among you, but whose deeds and deaths elevated them to a status beyond mere mortals, the heroes and ancestors, whose worship formed a vital, often deeply personal layer of ancient Greek piety. A common historical fact you'd know is that the worship of chthonic deities was often more localized and ancient than that of the Olympian pantheon. Many of these earthbound gods predate the arrival of the Olympians, representing older, more primal forces of nature and the cycles of life and death. Their cults often retained elements of earlier pre-Greek religious practices, connecting you to a deep, ancestral past. Imagine the stories you grew up with. Tales of mighty warriors like Achilles and Odysseus, wise kings like Theseus, or even the founders of your own city. These aren't just characters in epic poems. They are figures whose extraordinary lives, and often tragic deaths, granted them a unique power, a lingering influence that could still affect the living. You understand that while they are not gods in the Olympian sense, they are something more than human, existing in a liminal space between the mortal and the divine. Upon arrival at Eleusis, you enter the Telesterion, the great hall of initiation. This is where the most profound secrets are revealed, secrets that you are sworn by pain of death never to divulge. What exactly happened inside the Telesterion remains one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world. We know there was a dramatic presentation, a dramana, perhaps a reenactment of Demeter's search for Persephone in the underworld. There was also a showing of sacred objects, the epopteia, and a saying of sacred words, the legomena. The concept of a hero in ancient Greece is broader than our modern understanding. It doesn't just mean someone who performs brave deeds. A hero could be a legendary warrior, a city founder, a wise lawgiver, or even someone who died a particularly violent or unusual death. What unites them is their exceptional nature, their ability to transcend the ordinary, and their continued relevance to the community after their passing. They are the local celebrities, but with actual supernatural powers. A unique or lesser-known detail about your chthonic worship is the practice of incubatio, or temple sleep, particularly associated with healing cults like that of Asclepius, who, while an Olympian, had strong chthonic connections due to his healing powers and association with the earth. But for the underworld gods, incubatio could be used to seek prophetic dreams from the dead, or to communicate with deceased ancestors. You would sleep in a sacred space, hoping to receive a vision or message from the spirits of the departed. Imagine going to sleep hoping a ghost gives you stock tips. You might visit a Hirun, a shrine dedicated to a hero, often built over their supposed tomb or a place associated with their legend. These shrines are typically smaller and more localized than the grand temples of the Olympians, reflecting the hero's specific connection to a particular place or community. The atmosphere is often one of quiet reverence, a sense of history and lingering power. You might find yourself standing before a simple stone altar, perhaps a tree planted in their honor, feeling the weight of centuries of devotion. The spread of these cults across the Greek world and later into the Roman Empire highlights their enduring appeal. As Greek culture expanded, so too did the influence of these secret societies, offering a universal message of hope and spiritual fulfillment. They adapted to local customs and beliefs, but their core promise remained the same. Worship at a hero often involved rituals similar to those for chthonic deities. Offerings would be poured into a pit or trench, allowing them to reach the hero below the earth. These offerings might include libations of wine, milk, honey, or even blood from a sacrificial animal, often a black sheep or a pig. The rituals are typically performed at night or at dawn, emphasizing the hero's connection to the earth and the realm of the dead. It's like a very respectful, slightly spooky picnic for the departed. Academic scholars still debate the precise relationship between the Olympian and chthonic cults. Were they always distinct? Or did they sometimes overlap and influence each other? While the general distinction between sky gods and earth gods is clear, many deities, like Zeus himself as Zeus Chthonios, could have both Olympian and chthonic aspects, suggesting a more fluid and interconnected religious landscape than a strict dichotomy might imply. The purpose of hero worship is often pragmatic. You might appeal to a hero for specific aid related to their particular domain or legend. If you're a soldier, you might pray to Achilles for courage in battle. If you're a sailor, you might invoke Odysseus for safe passage. If your city is facing a plague, you might appeal to a local hero believed to have healing powers. Heroes are seen as powerful intercessors, able to bridge the gap between the mortal world and the divine, often more accessible and directly concerned with human affairs than the distant Olympians. They're like your personal, superpowered lobbyist in the afterlife. Academic scholars still debate the precise nature of the revelation experienced by the initiates at Eleusis. Was it a purely psychological and spiritual transformation induced by the rituals and sensory experiences? Or was there indeed some form of entheogenic substance in the kykion that facilitated altered states of consciousness? The lack of direct testimony due to the oath of secrecy means the true nature of the Eleusinian experience remains one of history's most tantalizing unsolved puzzles. A common historical fact you'd know is that hero cults were often deeply intertwined with the identity and history of a city-state. Many cities claimed a specific hero as their founder or protector, and their cults served to reinforce civic pride and unity. For instance, Athens revered Theseus, their legendary king and unifier, with a magnificent Theseon dedicated to him. Sparta revered Lycurgus, their legendary lawgiver. These heroes provided a shared narrative, a sense of common origin and destiny for the citizens. It's like having a really cool mascot, but one who actually fought monsters. The horrifying aspect of these rituals often stems from their direct engagement with death, the dead, and the unknown. Necromancy, the practice of communicating with the dead to gain knowledge or influence events, was a terrifying but sometimes sought-after ritual. You might consult a necromancer in a secluded, eerie location, hoping to summon the shade of a departed loved one or a wise ancestor for advice. The rituals could involve blood offerings, incantations, and a profound sense of trespassing into forbidden realms. The fear of disturbing the dead or incurring the wrath of Hades would be palpable. It's like playing with a Ouija board, but with much higher stakes and a lot more blood. A unique or lesser-known detail about hero cults is the practice of bone gathering, or the retrieval of a hero's remains. In some cases, a city might go to great lengths, even engaging in military campaigns, to acquire the bones of a revered hero from a rival city or a distant land. The presence of a hero's actual remains was believed to imbue the city with their protective power and good fortune. Imagine a modern city going to war over a skeleton. It sounds absurd. But for the ancient Greeks, it was a matter of profound religious and civic importance. Historians still debate the precise origins and influences of many of these mystery cults. Were they indigenous Greek developments? Or did they incorporate elements from older Near Eastern religions? The similarities between the myths of Demeter and Persephone and earlier Mesopotamian fertility goddesses, for instance, suggest possible cross-cultural influences. But the exact nature and extent of this syncretism remain a subject of scholarly discussion. Academic scholars still debate the precise origins of hero cults. Did they evolve from the worship of actual historical figures whose deeds became exaggerated over time? Or were they primarily mythical creations designed to explain natural phenomena or provide a sense of civic identity? The line between history and myth is often blurred. making it difficult to definitively pinpoint the genesis of many hero cults. The cult of the dead, or ancestor worship, was also a significant part of chthonic reverence. While not always involving direct communication, you would honor your deceased family members through regular rituals at their tombs. These might include pouring libations, leaving food offerings, and decorating the grave. The dead were believed to retain some influence over the living, and maintaining a good relationship with them was crucial for the well-being of your family. It's like keeping up with your family, even after they've moved to a very, very quiet neighborhood. Beyond the great heroes, you also practice ancestor worship, a more personal and universal form of reverence for the deceased members of your own family. This isn't about grand shrines. It's about maintaining a respectful relationship with your immediate forebears, those who came before you and whose spirits are believed to still watch over your household. The most famous, and perhaps the most influential, of these mystery cults are the Eleusinian Mysteries, dedicated to Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, and her daughter Persephone. You've heard whispers about them your entire life. Tales of secret rites performed in the sanctuary at Eleusis, a town not far from Athens. The promise is profound, a blessed afterlife for the initiates, a release from the fear of death. You regularly visit the family tomb, often located outside the city walls. Here, you perform simple rituals pouring libations of wine, oil, or honey onto the grave, leaving offerings of food, and decorating the tombstone with garlands of flowers. These acts are expressions of remembrance, respect, and a desire to ensure the continued well-being of the deceased in the afterlife. You might also speak to your ancestors, sharing news of the family, seeking their blessings, or asking for guidance. It's like a family reunion, but with fewer awkward silences and more grave decorations. The fear of the unburied dead, or those who died violently, was also profound. These restless spirits, the ceremonies, were believed to wander the earth, causing harm to the living. Rituals were sometimes performed to appease them, or to ensure their proper burial, allowing them to find peace in the underworld. You wouldn't want a vengeful ghost hanging around your house, would you? The belief is that if you neglect your ancestors, their spirits might become restless or even malevolent, bringing misfortune upon your household. Conversely, by honoring them, you ensure their benevolent influence, their agathos daemon, which can bring prosperity and protection to your family. This reciprocal relationship ensures that the dead are not forgotten and that their legacy continues to shape the lives of the living. You might also encounter smaller, more localized mystery cults, perhaps dedicated to a specific hero or a minor deity, offering unique insights or blessings to their initiates. These might involve simpler rituals, perhaps performed in a secluded grove or a private home, but they would still carry the same weight of secrecy and personal transformation. It's like finding a hidden gem of a spiritual retreat in your own backyard. The horrifying aspect of ancestor worship, if it exists, lies in the fear of the unappeased dead. Imagine the terror of a vengeful ancestor, a spirit that has been neglected or wronged, returning to haunt your home or bring ruin upon your family. This fear would drive you to meticulously perform the necessary rituals, ensuring that your ancestors remain content and benevolent. The stories of restless ghosts, the idola, who wander the earth because they were not properly buried or honored, serve as cautionary tales. It's a powerful motivator to keep up with your chores, even in the afterlife. The underworld itself, as a concept, was not a singular place, but had various regions. There was Tartarus, the deepest abyss, reserved for the worst offenders against the gods. There was the Asphodel Meadows, a neutral zone where most souls wandered aimlessly, neither good nor bad. And then there was Elysium, the Blessed Fields, reserved for heroes and those favored by the gods, or those initiated into the mysteries. Your hope, of course, was to end up in Elysium, perhaps enjoying eternal sunshine and endless feasts. The role of the chthonic aspect is particularly strong in ancestor worship. The dead are literally under the earth, and your offerings are meant to reach them in their subterranean dwelling. The rituals are often performed at ground level, or into specially designed shafts that lead to the burial chamber, emphasizing this direct connection to the earth. Beyond Eleusis, other mystery cults flourished, each with its own unique rituals and promises. The Orphic Mysteries, for instance, were centered around the mythical poet Orpheus, who descended into the underworld and returned. Orphism emphasized the dual nature of humanity, possessing both a divine, immortal soul and a mortal, earthly body. Initiates sought to purify their souls through ascetic practices, vegetarianism, and adherence to specific moral codes, aiming for a cycle of reincarnation that would eventually lead to liberation from the cycle of rebirth. It's like a spiritual self-improvement program with a very strict diet. The concept of the oikos, the household or family unit, is central to ancestor worship. The family is seen as a continuous lineage, stretching back through generations, and the ancestors are an integral part of this living entity. Your identity is deeply tied to your lineage, and honoring your ancestors is a way of honoring yourself and your family's place in the world. The journey to the underworld was a perilous one, often depicted as crossing the river Styx, ferried by the grim Karen. You would ensure that a coin, an obol, was placed under the tongue of the deceased before burial, to pay Karen for passage. Without it, the soul would be condemned to wander the banks of the Styx forever. A truly horrifying prospect. It's like forgetting your wallet on your way to the afterlife. The legal and social implications of ancestor worship were also significant. The proper burial and honoring of the dead were civic duties, and neglecting them could lead to social ostracism or even legal penalties. The right to inherit property, for instance, was often tied to the responsibility of maintaining the family cult. It's like a very old-fashioned inheritance clause that involves a lot of grave tending. The main shrine, or naos, is the center of attention. You do not walk freely inside the temple as you might in a modern church. Instead, you will see a huge cult statue of the deity being worshipped, usually placed in the center of the naos. This statue is not the deity itself, but a representation, a focal point for your devotion. It is often made of precious materials such as gold and ivory, which glisten in the sunlight streaming through the doorway. You will stand outside, looking in, feeling the majesty of the statue and the presence of the deity. The relationship between hero cults and ancestor worship is often fluid. A particularly revered ancestor might, over time, evolve into a local hero, their cult expanding beyond the immediate family to encompass the entire community. The lines between the personal and the public, the familial and the civic, are often blurred in ancient Greek religious practice. The experience of initiation was often transformative, a profound psychological and spiritual journey that left a lasting impact on the individual. It wasn't just about learning new facts, it was about experiencing the divine, feeling a direct connection that transcended intellectual understanding. This personal, experiential aspect was a key differentiator from the more public, civic-oriented worship of the Olympian gods. You might also encounter specific rituals for appeasing those who died tragically or violently, known as the Akathar Toy or unclean dead. These spirits were believed to be particularly restless and dangerous, requiring special rites to ensure their peace and prevent them from harming the living. These rituals could be somber and complex, involving specific purifications and offerings designed to soothe the troubled spirits. The worship of the chthonic gods and the rituals surrounding death were a constant reminder of human mortality and the cyclical nature of existence. They provided a framework for understanding loss, for processing grief, and for maintaining a connection with those who had passed on. While somber, these practices were essential for maintaining the balance between the living and the dead, and for ensuring the well-being of the community. As the moon climbs higher in the night sky, casting a silvery glow over the ancient tombs, you feel a profound connection to the past, to those who came before you. The heroes, with their legendary deeds, and your own ancestors, with their quiet watchfulness, are a constant presence in your life. Their influence is felt in the prosperity of your family, the protection of your city, and the very fabric of your identity. You have honored them, and in doing so, you have strengthened the ties that bind you to your heritage. And as you drift off to sleep, perhaps you dream of ancient heroes, or the comforting presence of your own departed loved ones. Knowing that even in death, the bonds of family and community endure, you might experience a profound sensory journey darkness followed by blinding light, the sounds of thunder and strange music, the smell of burning incense, and the taste of the kaikion, a sacred drink made of barley, mint, and pennyroyal, which some scholars believe might have had psychoactive properties. The culmination of the experience is believed to be a vision or revelation that grants you a deeper understanding of the cycles of life, death, and rebirth, and the promise of a favorable destiny in the afterlife. It's like a spiritual rave, but with more ancient secrets and less glow sticks. You've journeyed through the vibrant world of ancient Greek worship, from the grand Olympian temples to the secretive mystery cults, and even the personal reverence for heroes and ancestors. Now, as the night deepens, we approach the twilight of this era, witnessing the slow, inexorable shift in beliefs and the enduring echoes of a once dominant faith. As the last vestiges of daylight disappear, and the stars begin to twinkle faintly in the inky blackness, you feel the profound silence of the night. The rituals of the underworld are complete, and you carry a renewed awareness of the thin veil between life and death. You offer a final, silent prayer to Hades and Persephone, hoping for a peaceful night's rest, and perhaps a dreamless sleep that keeps the shadows at bay. Imagine the passage of centuries, a subtle, almost imperceptible change in the air. The marble temples still stand, magnificent under the Mediterranean sun, and the rituals continue. But a new current begins to flow through the Greek world. It's not a sudden collapse, but a gradual erosion, a slow re-evaluation of the divine. You begin to hear new ideas debated in the agora, new philosophies emerging that challenge the traditional narratives of the gods. As the night deepens and the whispers of ancient rituals fill the air, you understand that the human search for meaning and connection to the divine takes many forms. From the grand public spectacles to the hushed secrets of the mystery cults, the ancient Greeks sought to navigate their world with the gods as their guides. And as you drift off to sleep, perhaps you dream of a sacred ear of grain, or a glimpse of the blessed fields of Elysium, knowing that even in death there might be a path to light. The rise of philosophy, for instance, marks a significant turning point. Thinkers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle begin to scrutinize the nature of reality, ethics, and the divine with a rigor that hadn't been seen before. Socrates, with his relentless questioning, challenged conventional piety, urging people to examine their beliefs rather than blindly accepting tradition. Plato, with his concept of perfect forms and a transcendent, ultimate good, offered an alternative to the anthropomorphic, often flawed, gods of Olympus. Aristotle, with his emphasis on empirical observation and logical reasoning, laid the groundwork for a more rational understanding of the universe. You might find yourself listening to these debates, feeling a subtle tension between the old stories and these powerful new ways of thinking. It's like your favorite old TV show is suddenly being critiqued by a panel of very smart, very skeptical academics. The somber echoes of the underworld rituals fade as the first hint of dawn paints the sky. You've explored the depths of death, but now, let's turn our gaze to life, to healing, and to the divine intervention sought when the body falters. Tonight, we journey to the healing sanctuaries, places where the sick and the suffering sought solace, and where the god Asclepius, son of Apollo, held sway, offering hope for recovery through dreams and sacred rites. This isn't to say that philosophy immediately eradicated traditional worship. Far from it. Many philosophers still participated in public rituals and acknowledged the gods. But their ideas sowed seeds of doubt, encouraged individual inquiry, and offered alternative paths to understanding the cosmos and humanity's place within it. The gods were still revered, but perhaps their stories were increasingly seen as allegories or metaphors rather than literal historical accounts. The rites of Orphism often involved sacred texts, hymns, and a focus on Dionysus Zagreus, a chthonic aspect of Dionysus who was torn apart by the Titans and reborn. This myth symbolized the fragmentation and eventual reintegration of the soul. You might wear special white garments, abstain from meat, and dedicate yourself to a life of purity, hoping to achieve a higher state of being. Then comes the Hellenistic age, ushered in by the conquests of Alexander the Great. This era sees a vast expansion of Greek culture, but also a profound mixing of traditions. As Greek influence spreads across Egypt, the Near East, and Asia, Greek gods encounter foreign deities, and a process of syncretism begins. Zeus might be identified with the Egyptian god Amun, becoming Zeus Amun. Isis, an Egyptian goddess of magic and motherhood, gains immense popularity in the Greek world. Her cult offering personal salvation and a universal appeal that transcended national boundaries. You might find yourself praying at a temple where the familiar Greek gods are now intertwined with exotic, powerful new divinities, their attributes blending into something entirely new. It's like your local diner suddenly starts serving fusion cuisine, and it's surprisingly good. Imagine a persistent ache in your joints, a fever that won't break, or perhaps a chronic ailment that saps your strength. In your world, illness isn't just a biological malfunction. It's often seen as a divine punishment, a test, or a sign of miasma, ritual impurity. So, when human remedies fail, you turn to the gods, and the most prominent destination for divine healing is Asclepion, a sanctuary dedicated to Asclepius. The new mystery religions, which we touched upon earlier, also gained significant traction during this period. Cults like those of Isis, Mithras, and Cybele offer a more personal, emotional, and often exclusive spiritual experience than the traditional public cults. They promise individual salvation, a blessed afterlife, and a direct, intimate connection with the divine, appealing to a growing sense of individualism in a vast, interconnected world. These cults often featured elaborate initiation rites, secret knowledge, and a strong sense of community among initiates. You might be drawn to their promises, seeking a deeper meaning beyond the civic duties of traditional worship. The profound secrets of the mystery religions, with their promises of blessed afterlives, gently recede as dawn approaches. But what about the journey to that afterlife? What about the gods who govern the unseen realm, the shadowy domain beneath the earth? Tonight, we delve into the realm of the underworld gods and the often chilling rituals associated with their worship. This isn't about grand temples bathed in sunlight. It's about secluded groves, dark pits, and rites performed under the cloak of night. A common historical fact you'd observe is the Roman conquest of Greece. While Rome adopted many aspects of Greek culture, including their gods, often simply renaming them. Zeus became Jupiter, Hera became Juno, etc. This political shift had a subtle but significant impact on Greek religious practices. Roman state religion, with its emphasis on civic duty and formal rituals, began to influence Greek worship. The focus shifted slightly from the vibrant, autonomous city-state cults to a broader, more imperial religious landscape. The Greek gods were now part of a larger, more bureaucratic divine administration. You begin your journey, perhaps carried on a litter if your illness is severe, or slowly making your way on foot if you still have the strength. The path leads you away from the bustling cities, often to a tranquil, secluded spot, perhaps near a spring or a natural cave. The air here feels different, cleaner, imbued with a sense of peace and hope. You see others on the same path, some limping, some with bandages, all sharing a common purpose to seek the god's touch. It's like a very ancient, very spiritual hospital, but instead of doctors, you have snakes and dreams. A unique or lesser-known detail of this period is the phenomenon of interpretatio romana, where Roman writers and officials would systematically equate Greek gods with their Roman counterparts. This wasn't just a casual comparison. It was a deliberate intellectual and political act that helped integrate Greek culture into the Roman sphere. While seemingly benign, it subtly diluted the distinctiveness of the Greek deities, making them part of a larger, more universal pantheon under Roman sway. It's like your favorite independent band getting signed to a major label and suddenly sounding a bit too polished. Then comes the journey to Eleusis, the sacred site itself. You join a grand procession, the Pompeii, from Athens to Eleusis, a 20-kilometer walk filled with chants, songs, and ritualistic shouts. You carry sacred objects, perhaps a torch, and you feel the collective anticipation of hundreds, even thousands of fellow initiates. The road is dusty, the sun is warm, but the shared purpose propels you forward. It's a long walk, but at least you don't have to worry about getting stuck in traffic. Academic scholars still debate the extent to which the decline of traditional Greek religion was a result of internal philosophical critique versus external pressures from new cults and eventually Christianity. Was it a natural evolution of belief? Or was it a displacement by more appealing alternatives? Euech living through this period would likely experience it as a gradual, multifaceted shift, with different people embracing different paths at different times. As you approach the Asclepieion, you notice the serene atmosphere. There are often sacred groves, fountains, and porticos where patients can rest. The most famous Asclepieion is at Epidaurus, a sprawling complex that includes not only the temple but also a theater, a stadium, and various lodging facilities for pilgrims. This isn't just a place of worship, it's a holistic healing center, designed to soothe both the body and the spirit. You feel a sense of calm wash over you, a quiet optimism that perhaps, just perhaps, your suffering will soon end. The ultimate challenge to the ancient Greek gods comes with the rise of Christianity. Initially a small, persecuted sect, Christianity's monotheistic message, its emphasis on a single, all-powerful, and benevolent God, and its promise of eternal salvation through faith, offered a compelling alternative to the polytheistic traditions. As Christianity gained followers, especially after Emperor Constantine's conversion in the 4th century CE, the balance of power shifted dramatically. Imagine the sun dipping below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the landscape. The air grows cooler, and a different kind of silence descends, one that feels heavy with unspoken secrets. You're not heading to the bustling agora or a vibrant festival tonight. Instead, you're making your way to a secluded spot. Perhaps a cave entrance believed to lead to the depths, or a quiet, ancient grove where the trees seem to whisper forgotten names. This is where you connect with the chthonic deities, the gods of the earth and the dead, whose power is as fundamental as the ground beneath your feet. Imagine the Roman Empire, once the bastion of paganism, now increasingly Christian. Imperial decrees begin to favor Christianity, and pagan practices are gradually suppressed. Temples are closed, sacrifices are forbidden, and the old gods are increasingly viewed as demons or mere fictions. You might witness the dismantling of altars, the conversion of temples into churches, and the gradual fading of the old rituals. It's a profound cultural and religious upheaval, a world turning upside down. The first step upon arrival is purification. You cleanse yourself in the sacred springs, washing away the impurities of the outside world and preparing your body for the god's presence. You might offer a small sacrifice, perhaps a cock, a bird sacred to Asclepius, or a votive offering, a clay figurine representing your ailing body part. These acts are not just symbolic, they are believed to make you receptive to the god's healing power. It's like checking in at a resort, but instead of a welcome drink, you get a ritual bath. The Olympic Games, those grand celebrations dedicated to Zeus, are finally abolished by Emperor Theodosius I in 393 CE, marking a symbolic end to a long-standing pagan tradition. The oracle at Delphi falls silent, its Pythia no longer consulted, its sacred vapors perhaps no longer rising from the earth. The once vibrant festivals become mere echoes, their purpose forgotten or transformed. You might cling to the old ways in private, but the public face of worship has irrevocably changed. Another significant mystery cult was the cult of Cybele, the great mother goddess, and her consort Attis, originating from Anatolia but widely adopted in Greece. Her worship was characterized by ecstatic, frenzied rituals, often involving loud music, drumming, and wild dancing. Her priests, the Galli, were often eunuchs who performed self-castration as an act of devotion, a truly horrifying ritual for an outsider. You might witness her processions, the air filled with a cacophony of cymbals and flutes, feeling the raw, untamed energy of the goddess. It's a very intense party, and you probably wouldn't want to bring your parents. The horrifying aspect of this decline, for those who clung to the old ways, was the loss of their sacred world. Imagine your entire understanding of the cosmos, your relationship with the divine, your cultural identity, being systematically dismantled. The gods who once protected your city, ensured your harvests, and guided your fate are now dismissed, their temples desecrated. It's a spiritual void, a profound sense of abandonment, a world that no longer makes sense. The fear isn't of a vengeful god, but of a world without them. The central ritual of the Asclepieion is incubatio, or temple sleep, a practice you might remember from our discussion of chthonic worship. But here, it's specifically for healing. You enter the abaton, a sacred dormitory within the sanctuary, where you lie down to sleep. The room is quiet, dimly lit, and filled with the hushed whispers of other supplicants. You are encouraged to fall asleep, hoping that Asclepius will appear to you in a dream, either directly healing you or prescribing a cure. Yet, even as the ancient Greek religion faded as a dominant force, its legacy endured, woven deeply into the fabric of Western civilization. The myths, those captivating stories of gods and heroes, continued to be told, inspiring poets, artists, and playwrights for centuries to come. You see their influence in Roman art and literature, in the Renaissance's rediscovery of classical forms, and even in the Enlightenment's emphasis on reason and humanism, concepts that have roots in Greek philosophy. At the head of the shadowy pantheon is Hades, the stoic ruler of the underworld. He's not evil, and remember, but he is unyielding, the keeper of souls, and the one who ensures that death is a one-way journey. You don't often build magnificent temples to Hades in the heart of the city, as his presence is more associated with the inevitable end, with the earth's depths. His worship is more subdued, more personal, often driven by grief or a desire to ensure a peaceful passage for a loved one. You wouldn't invite him to a dinner party, but you'd certainly want him on your side when it's your time to go. The names of the gods live on in the stars. In the planets, remember your astronomy class, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and in scientific terminology, the very language you speak is filled with words derived from Greek mythology: Atlas, Echo, Narcissism, Herculean, Titanic. The architectural styles of the Greek temples continue to inspire public buildings around the world, from government structures to museums. It's like the gods packed up their bags but left their entire wardrobe and furniture behind. During this temple sleep, you might dream of the god himself, a benevolent figure with a staff entwined by a serpent, the symbol of medicine to this day. He might touch your afflicted area, or he might offer instructions. Go to the spring and drink. Apply this herb, or even go to the gymnasium and exercise. When you awaken, you recount your dream to the priests, who then interpret its meaning and advise you on the prescribed course of action. It's like getting medical advice from a very sleepy, very divine doctor. The concepts of democracy, philosophy, drama, and athletic competition, all deeply intertwined with ancient Greek religious and civic life, continue to shape modern societies. The idea of arete, excellence, still resonates. The humanistic spirit, which placed humanity at the center of the universe while still acknowledging the divine, remains a powerful force. A common historical fact you'd know is that the Eleusinian mysteries were open to all Greeks who spoke the language and had not committed murder, regardless of social status, gender, or even if they were slaves. This inclusivity was remarkable for the ancient world, offering a path to personal salvation that transcended societal divisions. It meant that even the humblest farmer could stand shoulder to shoulder with the most powerful statesman in the pursuit of divine truth. Historians still debate the precise moment when paganism truly died, or if it ever fully did. Pockets of traditional worship persisted for centuries, often blending with local Christian practices. The transition was complex, gradual, and varied from region to region. It wasn't a clean break, but a long, drawn-out process of adaptation and transformation. A common historical fact you'd know is that many of the cures prescribed in these dreams were often practical medical advice, sometimes involving diet, exercise, or herbal remedies. While the healing was attributed to divine intervention, the priests in attendance at the Asclepieion were often skilled in practical medicine, surgery, and pharmacology. They acted as intermediaries, translating divine instruction into tangible treatments. So, while you might think the god just waved his hand, it was often a combination of faith, placebo effect, and ancient medical knowledge at work. As the final embers of the ancient Greek world glow softly in the distance, you realize that nothing truly disappears. Beliefs evolve, empires rise and fall, but the stories, the ideas, and the profound human search for meaning continue. The gods of Olympus may no longer receive sacrifices in grand temples, but their echoes resonate in your language, your art, and your understanding of the human spirit. Alongside Hades is his queen, Persephone, the daughter of Demeter, snatched away to the underworld and now ruling by her husband's side. Her dual nature, goddess of spring and queen of the dead, makes her a particularly potent figure. Her worship often intertwines with that of her mother, especially in the Eleusinian mysteries. symbolizing the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. You might appeal to her for fertility of the land, understanding that her return from the underworld brings forth the spring. The night air grows still, the last whispers of ancient prayers fading into the vast silence. The journey through the world of ancient Greek worship comes to a gentle close. The grand temples, the solemn sacrifices, the cryptic oracles, the joyous festivals, the secret mysteries, the terrifying underworld rituals, the hopeful healing sanctuaries, and the enduring reverence for heroes and ancestors, all now blend into the quiet tapestry of history. You've walked with the gods, felt their presence, and witnessed their slow retreat from the center stage of human life. But remember, even in their fading, their stories continue to whisper, a timeless lullaby from a world long past. Let these ancient echoes guide you now into a peaceful, dreamless sleep. A unique or lesser-known detail about the Asclepieia is the presence of sacred snakes. Non-venomous snakes, particularly the Aesculapian snake Elaphe longissima, were kept in the sanctuaries, often allowed to roam freely. These snakes were considered sacred manifestations of Asclepius himself, and their presence was believed to be a sign of the god's healing power. You might see one slithering across the floor of the Abaton during your temple sleep, a truly unsettling but also deeply reassuring sight. Imagine waking up to a snake crawling over you, and instead of screaming, you think, oh good, the doctor's here. The horrifying aspect of these mystery cults often lies in the extreme devotion and self-abnegation they sometimes demanded. While the Eleusinian mysteries were generally not physically harmful, the self-mutilation practiced by the Galli of Cybele, or the intense, sometimes violent, ecstatic rituals of certain Dionysian cults like the Bacchae, remember your quiet neighbor tearing apart a goat, could certainly be considered horrifying from an external perspective. For the initiates, however, these acts were often seen as profound expressions of devotion, a shedding of the mundane self to achieve a deeper spiritual connection. It's all about perspective, really.